panel is now open. I'll hand it over to Olga.
Got promoted to being the moderator last night at 6. So otherwise I specialize in finance innovation and financial literacy across the globe. So I'm going to do my utmost best to keep this together and welcome as many questions and insightful statements from all of you. And if there are any questions from the audience, please do not shy away to raise your hand and make this interactive. Now, we are here to debate the future of financial services influenced by AI, machine learning, and fintech. And I would actually love to start with you, Mayur. How do you envision AI, ML, and fintech transforming the traditional financial landscape? What's in stock for us?
Okay, so first of all, good morning, everyone. I am Mayur Panchal from India. And this AI word, machine learning word is very kind of magic word, which everyone wants to use it to their best of abilities, right? So AI, ML, and fintech is poised to transform shift financial landscape that we have right now. So it will act as a catalyst to not only just how financial institutions operate, but also how individuals will engage with their finances. So AI and ML will act as a data analysis transportive shift, which will help to process the data so unprecedentedly that even the market trends and potential threats that we can't see will be able to see and provide a most customer-centric personalization services. So this will there, and fintech along with AI and ML will have impact on personalization of customer service center. Like all the traditional financial landscape where we see that only one service fits to all will change to each individual have a different experience. So,
and in all of this, with processing so much data, where do you see the services evolve? For example, more personalization, will we see hyper-personalization, and what do you think about data protection?
Yeah, so data protection will be one of the key center area where we need to focus, because as the AI progresses, more data will be taken from the user, and how we take the data, how we process the data, and how we use the data will have a high impact on this system. So keeping user also informed along with having a robust system to protect the data will be an important area.
And the role of humans in all of this process, where do you see the role of human oversight in all of it?
Yeah, so role of human will be very important, because there are few areas where AI, ML cannot operate, right? Where one of the thing is that algorithm bias is one of the thing. Like the AI operates based on the training data that we provide, right? So some data AI cannot process. Like if the training data is biased, then the output will also be biased. So as a human, we have to take care, identify this bias and mitigate how to mitigate this bias so that we have a fair and transparent result, right? So this is one of the things.
No, moderator, shut down. Let's try this one. I also think that there are many ethical questions to be debated, which I'm sure you, Eric, also have a view on. So let's come onto that just in a minute. Thank you so much for all your insights, Mayur. Maybe let's move on to George. George, in your view, Mayur was painting this big picture, right? How the technology will be shaping the future landscape, even down to the fact that potentially it will replace certain human activities. Where do you see the biggest challenges in implementing this technology?
Sure. So some of the challenges that we faced here in this data to AI, you want to know where it's going, how is it stored. As you mentioned, also we have regulation for privacy. So also this is a second concern. The third concern, and it's a major and legal one, is explainability. There might be a perception of a bias taken by AI, so that's another challenge. And on top of that, once you build all of this ecosystem, you would need the skills for the people and the engineer to build such system, which is also a challenge. So these are some of the challenges that I see.
Many banks and traditional players are worried about this technology. Where do you see the biggest changes that will happen and occur to them? And what should, if there is anyone in the audience around coming from the traditional banking centers, what should these guys do in order to stay on their toes and stay relevant in the future?
Sure, so if you want, the first pillar, as you mentioned, is hyper-personalization. So when I log into my internet banking, I need to see very customized content relevant for me, for my interests, for my actions. So this is important. A second challenge would be not a challenge, but a feature would be for banks to do their banking faster. So a lot of processes in banks, whether it's AML checking, documents requirement, analysis, this is taking a lot of time. So I think that the next step would be to be able to do this ideally in real time, and then imagine that you can go and purchase an item with money you don't have. If this would be, I think we have the technology to build this, but this would be a differentiating factor. So this is how I see this going.
And maybe a question to both of you, either to you, George, or to Carole. With all these changes happening, do you think there will need to be reskilling in the banking sectors for people to be more prepared to not only design and implement these technologies, but then also to handle them? Any views on how this could change the financial services jobs?
Definitely, there will be a push towards AI, but also I see here a cooperation with FinTech. So it's possible that bank will focus back their effort on doing banking in an efficient way. What we're hearing now about banking as a service. So banks will focus on banking, and they will offload this dynamicity and this customization to other parties, which are proved to be very good and very efficient at that.
Okay, so
you want to add your input?
So an efficiency gain, maybe. Mayur, do you want to comment? Anyone wants to comment on the statement? On the reskilling of the banking professionals and
yes.
changing jobs?
The both players, like startups, fintechs, and the traditional banks, both have to play according to their strength. So the collaboration between the traditional banks and the startup fintech would be huge benefits for the society. Like, so traditional banks can partner with the startup fintechs to leverage their technology and incorporate in their strong areas that they are operating, right? So I think collaboration is very much required.
Let's move on maybe a little bit to the customers and the whole educative aspect of it. We touched a lot around data, we spoke about hyper-personalization, wider-scale adoption and reskilling. Fabiola, you are working towards educating people on money, like myself. I think it's a huge passion of yours, right? Alleviating mental stress and making people understand a little bit more what all of these new innovations can be used for and how money can be managed well, right? Where do you see this new technology will help us to gain more trust towards financial services?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the question. I think we are trying to redefine the meaning of wealth. I will begin with that. And the analysis we are doing is that we have these two different types of clients. The traditional clients that are maybe parents, grandparents, Gen X or baby boomers, that are these clients that are very traditional, right? They are quite risk averse, they love human interaction, and they are very loyal to the traditional system. And what is more important, they don't judge the traditional system. But in the other side, what we have is these new generations, like millennials, centennials, that in our mindset, they come with a different way of thinking. And they are very rapid, dynamic, they are very techy, and they don't believe too much in loyalty. As we say, they don't get married with banks like that easy. And at the same time, I think they care about a lot of experience and not too much possessions. And what I mean is we don't care too much about having a lot of money in the bank. What we care is which is the purpose of that money. And I think here is where AI comes as a powerful solution, because you really can construct the services and products that we really need to satisfy those needs. And at the same time, what we are trying to do is to include these social-emotional tools and mental health as an important tool to really approach the new needs of generations. And for sure, if we include AI to do this, we are going to be more aligned with these new customers.
And do you think it will help the customers to gain trust or not? I mean, I read a statistic that already last year, 30 million people in the US were using chat-like functions to direct their banking services, right? So the adoption is coming, but it's probably not coming as fast as we would expect.
Maybe it's not coming as fast because we already miss framework and regulation. I think when we trust in someone is when we really have this framework already established and when we are educated also about it. And what is missing a lot in all the countries, not just in emerging countries such as Peru, Latin America in general, is education around it. Regulation plus education, I think, will bring in the trust. And the way we see it is that if we really approach these financial services in a different way, a bit against the traditional system, and we try to include this mental mindset and these emotional tools, then we can demonstrate to the clients that they can really trust on us, because we are seeing them not as a number, we are seeing them as a whole human being, and we try to be their allies and not their enemies. We don't want to see them as a number specifically. We are not trying to put a high interest rate. We are trying to see the whole well-being. And this for sure is like a loop. This will bring trust in the services.
Well, let's hope so. Maybe moving on from here to some of the ethical questions. Eric, what do you see as some of the biggest ethical challenges in all of this new technology? I mean, bias has already been mentioned, but what else do you see?
Yeah, sure. First of all, morning, everyone. And I really like what all the panelists has just said. And but we have to keep in mind that while AI brings us these huge opportunities, we need to use it really responsible. And when we consider these ethical issues, of course, I will recollect that when we say bias, we mean algorithmic bias, yes? And where we can see algorithmic bias, for example, in lending platforms, right? When we try to score a potential customer, and the system provides different score depending on the data that we feed it to this system, right? Definitely, it's an ethical issue, and it appeared recently. Other ethical issues that we see now in the market, they link to high-frequency trading, for example. There are lots of, in US, if we consider US, for example, 70% of all the trades, it is frequency trades, HFT trades. In Europe, it's roughly 50%. Okay, and using AI, scammers can make fake orders and move in markets by means of this AI implementation. So again, it's an ethical issue, and we need to address it. Also, for example, another ethical issue that I just read, like I know a couple of weeks ago, is fake news that you can find online. And it will definitely affect the market. So there are lots of traders that rely on news that appears online, and if AI generates fake news, it will move market, and it will, again, it's a sort of a bias. So how can we address those issues? I would say there are clearly 3 points that we can use, right? First one is regulatory framework, obviously. Actually, let's divide all those points into groups, external and internal. So external is regulatory framework. We see that the regulation it's like a greenfield, it's still developing. In EU, there is an AI Act. It's like a general thing that will regulate AI in the future. In UK, they are trying now another approach, They try to rely on existing legislation in order to regulate AI. US is something in between, but again, it's still a green story, and the legislation is still developing. Second thing I would say is, now we come to internal factors. Okay, second thing is mandatory audit, because when we develop AI models, obviously the company needs to be responsible itself. So it needs to make a proper audit, it needs to use external providers in order to audit the model and to be sure that there is no bias inside the platform, inside the model. And the third one, and it's actually the thing that our fund specifically looks at the moment, is synthetic data. Synthetic data is something that can help you to make a proper data set in order to train your model and to get rid of this bias that you have on the data that you can get online or from open sources. So actually that's the general ideas.
And Fabiola, you was commenting right on the role of regulation to reinstall trust. Where do you think regulators can find the balance between over-regulating and therefore killing the innovation, as giving the right framework in terms of having innovation flourish, but kind of giving the whole thing some boundaries?
Yeah, definitely. Regulators should work closely with large corporates, and only together they can find a proper way for such regulation. For example, if you see like large corporates like Microsoft, Apple, etc., they don't invest and then don't do R&D in AI space. They use partnerships. And I believe that this approach should definitely be used between authorities and large corporations in order to find proper solutions.
Thank you so much, Egor, for all of these views. Maybe let me turn on this topic on ethical and disclosure and all these considerations also to you, Mayur, right? Where do you see financial services providers have kind of a duty or a diligence to disclose to people that maybe their portfolios have been put together with the help of AI?
Yeah, so in order to AI to work, we need lots of data from customer, right? But it has to be very responsible use of the data, where we give the customer the control of how they want their data to be used, right? And having a transparent system of AI where the customer knows how their data is used will give them more trust on the system. And that's how the AI will evolve. Otherwise, people will be scared of using AI, because we know that now we only write one word in our mobile and everywhere we see the shopping list, places to visit, stuff like this. So it has to be a more transparent and explainable AI, as you say, the word is. That's how we can deal with the ethic issue.
This is good, we're having like microphone swap here on a tech panel is great fun. Thank you. Fabiola, in your view, do you think that people are sufficiently aware how this technology is being implemented when it comes to manage their finances? Or is there a lot of financial education?
Well, I think they are not aware too much about this. What I think is that these coming generations are feeling very attractive to AI and different technologies that they are seeing around. But as we were discussing previously, they don't trust too much now because we are missing a lot of regulation and framework. But at the same time, as I was saying, for me and for you, for sure, it's all about education. If we really teach them how to use this technology and that they can really trust on this, they are going to be there. Because they are very dynamism, like they like to really be close to the technology. The problem is, for now, in my vision, traditional banking system or the traditional model is still trying to change this but it's not that easy because for sure they need a lot of investments and it requires a lot of cost for them. And at the same time, the way they are thinking, as I was saying, is not more about possessions at all. It's about the whole experience. And AI brings these capabilities to really construct something that is very aligned to them. So yes, I think we miss education again. I think it's not easy. In countries such as Peru or in general emerging countries, we have the problem also that we don't have the access to a lot of communities. And it's because of our geographies that are quite difficult. And at the same time, we have a lot of people that are unbanked. Nowadays, I think it's quite 1/3 of the world population that are unbanked. But in emerging markets, it's even more. So in some regions, I think the work is different. We need to go to the basics of education, since teaching them what is a bank, and that bank can be your ally and not your enemy. And in other regions, I think it's going a bit more, okay, you are already banked, so how you can use these financial services with AI. And make them understand that AI could be really aligned with their needs. So it's a hard work, and I think it's very important to have a lot of stakeholders like working in this education.
And you mentioned a very important point, right? The use of the technology, in particular of AI, to make financial services available to people that have been unbanked or excluded from the traditional system. And that brings me to the whole topic around impact and using this technology for good. Carole, any views how AI, machine learning, fintech can be used to give money purpose and meaning, and what this can mean in terms of impact for the financial services sector?
Yes, so I'm coming to this from government, social impact, and fintech is revolutionizing the way we manage societies and the way things operate. It's going to have a huge impact on many fronts. First, on the way the government manages its fiscal dynamics, the way it manages the transaction, it collects taxes, the way it produces e-procurement and procurement. All the government operation now is become transparent. All of it is become sometimes immutable because of the blockchain. And here we're going to have the good governance introduced. Now, what AI is bringing here is the ability to do some fraud detection, to do some risk assessments. So it's bringing this machine capability to do this monitoring and auditing that we never can do with paper ledger, with intermediaries, with manual processes. So now we can make sure that we can audit and manage the fraud and the risk in an efficient way. So this is a big game changer for us. There's another very interesting thing here with AI and introducing AI and its impact on the societies. It's the whole game about digital identity all the way to social aid distribution and social protection. Social protection now is not managed by individual and not managed by arbitrary decisions anymore. It's managed by an AI that has some economic criteria to determine who should get the social aid, who should not get the social aid, and how to separate between the recipients depending on objective criteria. And this is a huge game changer. Today, the World Bank and the UNHCR and all these big organizations, the WFP, are using AI and fintech to distribute aid efficiently. It's no more the time of, the WFP carrying boxes and dropping it in houses, and you don't know if they get there or they don't get there. Now it's just transaction that can be monitored, that can be audited, and you have data that you can analyze, that can inform the decision, that can help you improve. And last point is the whole data thing. The public sector today has a big hunger for data-driven decision. And data-driven decision can be immensely empowered and augmented by AI. Why? Because AI allows you to analyze data and provide insights while protecting the confidentiality. It's no more an individual looking at data and you don't know if the data governance is preserved or not and the confidentiality is preserved or not. No, it's a machine that's accessing encrypted or whatever data without any risks of leakages or any risks of breach in the data, the way the data is managed. So you can see how much, through this example, how much AI and fintech are transforming the government and the social sectors today, making them more efficient, serving better the needs of the societies and the need of the most vulnerable in the societies.
And if you were to imagine or catapult yourself 10 years into the future, where do you think it all will go with this efficiency? And where's the biggest benefit for us as the normal common people?
You know, there's a very interesting combination in fintech. It's AI and blockchain and social contract. I think this is going to be a huge game changer because it's going to be machine talk to machine, and we will not have the human intermediary anymore. If we know how to leverage this and how to implement it, it's going to be a big changer because all the rules and the contracts and the regulations will be embedded in the machine and will be automatically audited, automatically implemented without any even need to audit and observe and detect fraud, etc. So I think the whole combination of blockchain and AI is a big game changer. And we should not forget that blockchain is the baby of fintech. It was produced by the financial sector, but now it's going and making a journey in tons of other sectors. So the technology is going and being, you know, recycled into other sectors to automate the relationship between different parties. And this creates a relationship that is more genuine, more pure, more correct, more legal, and immutable.
So speaking of convergence of technologies, but potentially also convergence of services, right? And I would be interested to hear maybe from you, George, or Mayur, where do you see kind of the overall sector evolving? Will we be looking at super banks without branches that serve people technologically? Will we all have it in our glasses guided by Apple? Where do you see this all evolving in the next 10 years?
Yes, so way I see it is the democratization of finance. We will see more finance services spread across more and more services. So that's one. And I see a better utilization of resources, of funds. Banks will be faster to process, but when bank will remain. I remember when I started working in the banking industry around the 2000, we were being told that MNOs will replace banks and banks are set to die. And you remember, like, there was all this jargon, and banks are staying because at the end, banks will be funding governments. So they play a key role in a modern economy. But the way I see it is a little bit like the model of Apple and the Apple Card, when you see a tech company offering tech services through a very interactive interface, and you will have the bank on the background performing this financial operation in a very optimized way, very fast. And there is also a use case which I like to mention very often. Banks have the perception that they can track or they have enough information about their consumer based on their spendings. But the problem is that once the consumer spends, it's too late. He already made a purchase. He might not do the same purchase after years. So I think that a correct collaboration between maybe fintech or social network or e-commerce providers and bank, and they can, if the consumer accepts and agrees, share this information, then the bank can, through online banking, promote products for their customers, for the bank customers. So you would see this spread, which you see sometime when you make a search on one site, you see it on another site. You might even see it at your bank, and the bank might promote their own customers. So like, if you, seems you're looking for a watch, what about this, this vendor? So that's how I see it, a more homogeneous adoption of finance into many experiences. That's how I see it. And banks will be in the background doing all the hard work.
And in your view, what role does all of the innovation in embedded banking play to make this experience more seamless?
Yes, definitely. And I believe also that I see that regulator are more and more interested into pushing towards innovation moving forward, just like open banking has been regulated. So I see this, yes, moving forward. Okay. And bank will be innovating, fintech will be innovating, TPPs will be innovating. So it's a very interesting prospect where we are going. I mean, you know, now we're hearing about central bank digital currency. We wouldn't hear about that like a few years ago. Like imagine mentioning that in 2008.
Absolutely, and now, according to what I have read, over 130 central banks are looking into this, right? Thank you so much for this view. You had some comments, right? Let me give you the mic.
Thank you. Yeah, actually a short comment on this. I totally agree with what you just said, but if we look at this from a higher perspective, we as an investment fund try to understand how can we get returns on the investments into AI. And we understood that if you ever worked in project management, you have actually three things that you are kind of dancing around, which are quality, speed, and price. And before the AI era, you can manage two of these things, and the third one will still be unmanaged. Like, so you can't make low price, fast speed, and high quality. You can only manage two of these things. But now, when we have AI in place, we can try to make all these three things better, which means that if we consider impact of AI to our fintech, and not only fintech, like every industry, it will make things faster, cheaper, and more qualitative.
Okay, so before I come to my final question, asking you about some actionable tips for the audience, let's see, is anyone in the audience having any question to the panel? Yes, I don't know, I have a mic buddy, maybe a mic comes to you as well. Or otherwise try to shout.
Around the new technology. So the technology is obviously coming across with its own baggage of challenges across every facet of the supply chain. Now, we did speak about building trust, but, you know, which comes with habit, which comes with repeated use and more familiarity with the entire ecosystem that's now coming up. Are there any other ways or any other thoughts that you have around how trust can be built, not just across the end consumer, but also the manufacturer and the regulator? Because I think trust is not just one area. So,
thank you so much. And to whom would you like to direct this question?
I think the panel is all equally competent, so anyone who can pick it up.
Okay, either one care to comment? Yeah.
So the key area of trust is the knowing the unknown factors, right? If you know that how your AI is processing your data, and it is transparent and explainable to the user as well as the supplier or manufacturer, as you say, that will enable them to trust more, right? So in that area, system as well as human oversight both are important. Like AI is based on some training data, but there are some situations where there could be some unprecedented situation where training data is not provided. So there human oversight is also required. So having a transparent AI with human oversight may enable more trust in the area.
And if I might add to that, just some experience from Switzerland and from the UK, naturally establishing an environment where collaboration can take place between regulators, startups, established players in the form of a sandbox, for example, can get you a very great way. The UK has a really great model around this, like a sandbox environment, and that helps everybody to learn, because we all should not forget that we all are learning with these new technologies, right? We're exploring, we're learning. So when parties learn together, usually it helps to build trust. I think there was another question somewhere there in the audience. Yes, please go for it.
Hello, I'm from UK as well. So my question is regarding the title of this discussion. So the future of finance services in AI. So, I mean, and I think in UK you might have seen a lot of startups, fintech startups coming up, and they're actually competing with the traditional banks, like Monzo and other companies. So I think they are using AI a lot. So my question is the traditional banks need to compete with these startups to use AI, or how do they actually, embrace this AI? Because the startups will embrace AI faster than the traditional banks. So how do the panel take that as a challenge?
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's not about competition. I think it's about collaboration. And what we have been doing in one company I was working last year in France is that we were creating one project that was co-creation. So this is a big multinational company, very positioned around the world, but they need to know more about these new technologies because they are very traditional and for sure the systems they have are very old. So what they did is we create this project in order to invite all these fintech and tech startups in general around the world, not just in Europe, to find a kind of co-creation program. So we were inviting them, but at the same time we were learning from them. And we were saying to our customer, look, we can do good collaborations in order to co-create a better solution for you. And after that, for sure, what the startup was winning is also the image of our company. And at the same time, we were doing some partnerships at the end with the ideas that we think are the most important for our customers. But I think it's very important, first of all, to understand the real need of the customer. Because when we understand that, we are very aware and open to do these collaborations. So I don't think it's about competition. Another point that I think is very important is that some companies are using these arms of CBCs, of corporate BCs, in order to incorporate as a really nice way these fintechs and being part of the environment and at some point leveraging from their technology to create new solutions for the whole corporation. So again, it's about collaboration, it's about education, I don't think it's competition.
Thank you so much, Fabiola, and also if you could hand over to Carole, who has a comment on this. I'm sure, Carole, you have a view.
Yeah, talking a bit about the trust and the whole competition, I think there is a new category of actors that we will see probably come on the scene, is the actor of those institutions that use AI to audit AI. I think that AIs are starting to be audited now by many organizations in the EU because of the EU AI Act in regards to the big social media use and to assess their bias. So they take samples from different zones and see the output that these samples produce and if the recommendations and the insights produced by these samples are inclusive or not. I think in the fintech there will be a category of players that will come on the scene whose role is to do these assessments and audits of AIs and who will help actually build the trust in a way that you will help to validate the algorithm that you're using. Because at the end of the day, the party that's developing the algorithm needs a third party that will come and validates the neutrality of this algorithm and whether it's working enough to address the bias or not. So this is a very important thing to think about. It's actually bringing a third party to do the audit on the methodology and to bring the third party perception and evaluation. This will help build trust. So that takes me to the last point is to build trust in the developing of the AI, you have to be transparent about the methodology to a certain extent. It's your internal methodology and your methodology bringing external players. And the other player that is interesting is actually the banks, because the banks have knowledge of the sector. They're not pure tech. The pure techs, they develop tech, but they have no clue about the sector. So this is what drives the bias. So when you bring players like banks that have decades of experience, this is where the human insights can come also to address the arbitrary output of the AIs. So I think it's a multi-stakeholder thing that will build collaboration, but also trust in the AI and help us build AIs that are efficient enough and that are neutral enough to provide the insight, the kind of insights we want.
Thank you so much for this view, and you can keep the mic just to round off this panel, because here the MC is already signaling that we should make room for other experts to speak. If there was one thing that you wanted to happen for technology and financial services to advance together in the future, the one thing that should happen in the next 12 months, what would it be for you, Carole?
The one thing to advance what?
technology and financial services. So all we've spoken about still seems a little bit theoretic, right? What would need to happen in the next 12 months so this stuff actually moves into practice?
Talking by objective, I think the biggest objective for, I'm driven by social impact. So I think inclusion and fair distribution is the one big achievement of FinTech that we can aspire towards. And I think FinTech is a huge game changer if we know how to steer it and integrate, AI and blockchain and all these capabilities in order to achieve that. And I think this is a collaborative effort that should come from the private sector, the public sector, the social sector, and the R&D sector to achieve these objectives.
So on that happy note, thank you, wonderful panelists, for being here today and you being my mic buddy. And to your engaged audience, and I wish you all a fantastic continuation of the conference. And handing over to the keen and eager conference chair.
Thank you so much, Olga. And it was a wonderful, absorbing session, and I'm glad that AI isn't taking over my job as of now. So I'm going to be here, and you'll have to bear the brunt for the next 2 days. Thank you so much once again. Let's hear it for our panel. And of course, it was a very AI-absorbing interaction.